So now let me talk about a widely popular lexical resource which goes by the name of WordNet. WordNet has been developed in the 1990s around, and it has been majorly popular until, let's say, the 2000s, or maybe even in part still in the 2010s. WordNet does not only encode words as in the previous word lists of English, but it also gives their relationships. So WordNet really has a network, as illustrated here, constitutes a networks between the different words in the English language. The relationships that WordNet encodes are those of synonymy, where synonymy refers to meaning equivalence. So two words are synonymous if they have the same meaning. But also WordNet has hierarchical relationships between words, such as the is-a relationship, which could mean that two words stand in a hierarchical relationship, such as that one word is an instance of another word. For example, the word dog is an animal. So dog is a more specific realization of the more general concept or word animal. WordNet is semantically oriented rather than, for example, grammatically or syntactically oriented, meaning that WordNet captures the meaning or the content of words. Currently, it has 155,000 words stored in its lexical database and about 117,000 synonym sets, or as they are also called in WordNet, synsets. Each such synset has semantically equivalent words. So first, let's briefly again recollect what a synonym is. So that comes from Greek and means two words have the same meaning. An illustration is here in the given sentence. And from the sentence, and also from, because we know the meaning of the words, we know that those two words, namely motorcar and automobile, are more or less equivalent, so they are synonyms. And the exchangeability of words in different contexts can even be considered the definition of synonymy. If two words can be exchanged in all contexts, then certainly they must be considered synonyms. If we want to use synsets and if we want to use WordNet from NLTK, we would do so as follows. We would import from the NLT corpus WordNet, which is like a built-in object in NLTK corpus, and here we use this convenient notation as WN, which allows us to refer to the object in a shorter notation. So if we consider WN synsets of a specific word, it will give us all the synsets that the word motorcar appears in. So it would give us all the senses of the word motorcar. And in this case, the word motorcar has only one sense, namely the sense corresponding to the synset, which is called car N01 here. So now what does this notation mean? Car is just a convenient form of referring to this synset. Like it's one verbose string that denotes this synset, and it's subcategorized by its property of being a noun. And here is just an index. So this is car. This is the synset with the name car, and the object, the words that are in the synsets are nouns, and this is the first such meaning equivalent set. When we then check a certain synset, namely car N01, and we can look into it and look into the words that are comprised in this synset and which are considered synonymous. So in this case, we have the names car, auto, automobile, machine, and motor car as being considered synonymous, and these are the words that constitute this synset here. Each synset comes with a definition and with examples. So we can go to our use case of car 01 and check its definition, and WordNet will tell us this is a motor vehicle with four wheels, usually propelled by an internal combustion engine. We can also look at example use cases of how the words in the synsets would be used. For example, he needs a car to get to work. And you know that this is similar really to a human constructed lexicon that you may have already consulted in your life. You usually see definitions and example usages. Note that each word can have several meanings, as we know by now, not only from the word can or from the word see, saw before. And those different meanings are also the different senses of the words in NLP terminology. And we can go over, so we can take a word such as car and go over its synsets, and these synsets constitute the different meanings of the words. And then we can print out the definition of each synset to get the different senses of the words car. So in this case, the sense number 1 would be a motor vehicle with four wheels. Sense number 2 would be a wheeled vehicle adapted to the rails of the railroad. And the third definition, the definition of the third sense would be the compartment that is suspended from an airship, etc., etc. Besides checking the definitions, we can of course also peek into the words that constitute a synset. So we go we check the synsets of car, we go over the synsets and print the lemma names, and from those words in the synset we get a feeling and an understanding similar to the definition of what actually this sense actually means. Now, a property that I've already alluded to when I introduced WordNet is that WordNet encodes relationships between objects, between linguistic objects. On the one hand, we had this synonymy relationship that holds between the words within any synset. On the other hand, we also have hierarchical relationships of containment between synsets, not between all synsets, but between selected synsets. We have like a is a relationship as illustrated in this graph here. So on top of the tree, we have more general synsets such as artifact. Those more general synsets contain more specific synsets such as motor vehicle. You can also say each motor vehicle is an artifact. Each go-kart is a motor vehicle. Each gas puzzler is a motor car. Each motor car is a motor vehicle. In linguistic terms, such relationships of being more specific is also referred to by the word hyponym. And in terms of the WordNet hierarchy, hyponyms are children. How can we now navigate the WordNet hierarchy? For example, we take a particular synset, such as this of car N01, and you remember that car N01 contained car, motor car, and a few other equivalent expressions. Then we can type for motor car, give me the hyponyms of motor car, and remember hyponyms are further down the hierarchy, so they are more specific words. So we get the specific types of motor cars, and then we can check in WordNet particular elements in this list. For example, here we choose the element number 26, and this is also a motor car. It's an ambulance. And vice versa, we can also go up the ladder. Instead of going to more specific terms, we go to more general terms, and in linguistic parlor, those more general terms are called hyponyms, or in the terminology of WordNet, they are parents. So if we want to go to the parents, we just type dot hypernyms and we get another synset because the relationship is among synset. So from motor car, a hypernym is motor vehicle, as we have just seen here, right? We go up the ladder. And then there's also something we can type hypernym paths, and what this is doing, it is giving us all the paths from this specific synset and including this specific synset up to the very top of the hierarchy, of the WordNet hierarchy. And it gives us all paths. And note that there might be multiple possible paths. So in this case, there are exactly two paths from the motor car or the car synset up to the hierarchy, and we can check those two. So first, so we check path number 0 from motor car to the root of the WordNet graph. So we start out with car or motor car. So remember that motor car was in the synset of car. Then we go up over wheeled vehicle, container, instrumentality, artifact, whole, object, physical entity, to entity, which is on the very top of the WordNet hierarchy. A different path is, again, we start out from car, motor car, and then we go over wheeled vehicle to vehicle, and this is here the difference. So here it goes, a wheeled vehicle is a vehicle, and a wheeled vehicle is also a container. So here, this is the cause of the two different paths. And note that linguists know many more lexical semantic relationships between words, and many of those are encoded in WordNet. So with hypernyms and hyponyms, we're going up and down the SA hierarchy, but we also have relationships of components. So this is goes under the word of meronym in terms of linguistics, where there exists a meronymy relationship between two words if one of the words is a part of the other word. So a finger is a part of the hand, so there's a meronymy relationship between those two words. And also there are many different other relationships, such as holonyms, which describe the relationship of being contained in. And to illustrate this by way of example, let's look at, for example, we check the synset for tree, and we check the meronyms, and we can even further specialize the part meronyms. So we get all the words that that are part or that constitute together, that are component parts of a tree, and this is, for example, burl, crown, or stump. They all are parts of a tree. Also trunk and limb. We can also find further meronyms that WordNet classifies as substance meronyms, and we would find hardwood, sapwood, because they are also part of the tree, but they are more like substantial parts of the tree. I'm not sure if that makes sense for you linguistically, but just be aware that WordNet is even further differentiating those meronyms. And in terms of holonyms, we also have differentiation. Let's say WordNet calls those member holonyms, and maybe it further subclassifies the holonyms. And here we would find forest and tree are in such a holonymy relationship because each tree is in a forest. Okay, so it's noteworthy to say that meronym and holonym are like opposites, in the same way that hypernym and hyponym are opposite, going up, down. And here it says the one thing has the components, and the other, and this is the reverse relationship, where a thing is contained, where a thing is a component of the other concept or word. And of course, antonymy is also a relationship that you know from like elementary school education, let's say, or from elementary linguistics. We can get we can take the subset, for example, for or we can take the synset for supply, and we get its antonym, and it would be demand. Rush is maybe linger, horizontal is maybe vertical, or inclined, so it has maybe multiple, it can have multiple antonyms, and staccato is maybe legato. So, and if you want to find out about other lexical semantic relations and methods defined on a synset, you can use this function dir, which which you have probably seen me using already when I did some coding in the Python shell, and with this you find all of the methods available, and also these methods often encode lexical semantic relationships. So just check it out. Now we have talked a lot about lexical semantic relationships. So relationships between words or between synsets that operate on the level of meaning. We can also look at other relationships between words on different levels. So we could look at grammar, or we could look at syntax, but we can also go a little bit down or a little bit further down in the linguistic hierarchy, so to speak, and check spelling and the pronunciation of words. And there's an interesting relationship between pronunciation, spelling, and meaning, right? And we can classify those. So if you look at this Venn diagram here, um, you see words, for example, that have the same pronunciation. So you pronounce them the same way, such as those words here, to, and two. And note here that the first one may alter a little bit depending on the context. So this could be also pronounced like a short U, to, and this is a long U, two, and those two cases, right? Two and two, those are really indistinguishable in terms of pronunciation. And such words that have a different spelling but the same different spelling and different meaning but the same pronunciation are also called heterographs. Okay, and you can also have words that have the same spelling but a different sound and a different meaning, such as the word dessert and no, the word desert. No, which one is it? So desert. This is the where you have a sand and where you have dry temperature and hot temperature, versus dessert or dessert. So somebody is leaving, or yeah, desert, right? You desert from the army. So these are words that are written in the same way, but they have different meaning and they have also different pronunciation. We can also look at the overlap of those two here. So these are words that have the same pronunciation and the same spelling, but so here we are on the meaning level, they have different meaning. So what kind of words could that be? Well, it could be tire and tire. The one thing is the tire, which is part of a car, and the other thing is the tire, which means which is like related to the word I'm tired. So those words have same spelling, same pronunciation, but different meaning. On the other hand, we can have words that are meaning equivalent, but both spelled and pronounced in a very different way. Examples of such things would be, let's say, car and motor car, if we really take those to be synonyms in all circumstances. Um, so, of course, they have different pronunciation, different spelling, but we can also have overlaps here. So, words that are meaning equivalent and have the same pronunciation but not the same spelling, what would that be? Well, that would be spelling variants such as gases, right? Which you pronounce exactly the same way, but you can write in either of the two variants. In German, it would also be something like elephant, which you can write with an F or with PH. You can also have words that are meaning equivalent, that have the same the same um, that have the same spelling, but they have different pronunciation, um, and their meaning equivalent. So what could that be? That could be something like here in the example we have about versus so they have the same spelling, so they're actually identical, right? In terms of writing, so it would be two times about, but apparently you can pronounce about in two different manners, whether you want to say about or more something like about. I don't know who is saying about and whether this is really proper English, but maybe it's a dialect of English. Yeah, I cannot think of other words at the moment. So, and of course, if you have all three things simultaneously written the same way, pronounced the same way, and having equivalent meaning, yeah, if they are written the same way and they are pronounced the same way, and have the same meaning, well, then they are identical words, right? So, you can have such relationships between words on the level of meaning, on the level of spelling and pronunciation, and there may be interesting relationships between those. And linguists have also come up with different terms for those cases. For example, if we have two words that have a different meaning and have the same spelling and the same pronunciation, then this would be homonyms, and we have seen such a case already. It would be can, or it would be saw, as we have seen previously. If the meaning is different, the spelling is the same, and the pronunciation is the same or different, then these would be called homographs. And you can build those words yourself if you just keep in mind that those words all derive from Greek, and nim stands for nome, for name. Graph stands for letter. Phone stands for pronunciation, and homo stands for same, and hetero stands for different. So if we check, for example, what is a heteronym, this is a different name, so we have a different meaning, a different pronunciation, but the same spelling. So such two words would be called heteronyms, and um, in our hierarchy before, which is reproduced here in a different visualization, we would we would be here on the level of a different spelling and a different meaning, and no, where would we be for heteronym? We would be on the level of the same spelling. So now where's spelling here? So here's the same spelling. So here's the heteronym, right? We have the same spelling. We have different meaning and different pronunciation. So this would be the case of dessert versus desert versus dessert, right? Or dessert versus desert, right? So these are such cases, and linguists have given different names for such cases, and yeah, so these are interesting linguistic denominations and linguistic concepts, um, and show the interplay of pronunciation, spelling, and meaning.